Welcome back to Tales Recapped. Today I'm going to explain the film called The Unhealer, released in 2020. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and stay safe. The movie begins with a drunk man named Reverend Pfluger parking his car nowhere in the forest. As soon as he drops off, he gradually gets out and gulps the wine bottle. Pfluger then takes out his hiking backpack from the trunk and down it. Afterward, he suddenly digs on the ground using a shovel. Pfluger eventually discovers a bone and a skull upon searching. Because of that, the bone eventually oscillates after he drops off the head. Unfortunately, Pfluger gets carried away by the explosion, causing him to hit the car. Yet Pfluger only laughs it out. After a while, Pfluger drives himself out of the forest after failing to dig something in that place. The following day, Kelly enters a convenience store and gives the cashier, Paulette, a smile. Afterward, he gets a noodle cup on the rack and pays for it on the counter. However, Kelly suddenly bumps into Dominique and Sarah while walking, to which he greets them and then heads straight, moving. On the other hand, Sarah teases Dominique after passing through Kelly. So Dominique tells her that Kelly's the only person who treats her nice when she moves to their town. Meanwhile, Kelly opens the lid of the noodle cup and strangely eats its extruded polystyrene foam. While Kelly is busy with his food, Nelson and his group suddenly approach him. Nelson then mocks Kelly, saying he's a human garbage disposal. So Kelly throws the contents of the noodle cup in the trash and leaves with his bike, but Nelson stops him. As the helpless Kelly lets Nelson and his group ridicule him, Dominique suddenly appears to rescue him. Dominique then tells Nelson and his group to leave Kelly alone. Yet Nelson clarifies that it's guy stuff, then attempts to tuck Dominique's hair behind her ear. So Kelly immediately warns Nelson not to touch her, resulting in Nelson and his group getting pissed. Afterward, Tony and Reed carry Kelly to put him in a trash can. As Kelly vertically gets his body inside of it, Nelson starts filming Tony while holding Kelly's legs. Technically, Tony makes fun of Kelly by saying inept words and throwing a soda can inside his pants. Luckily, Paulette comes and intervenes with Nelson's scheme towards Kelly. Then she shoos them away while Dominique's helping Kelly to get out of the trash can. Afterward, Paulette approaches Kelly when suddenly Dominique stands in between them and apologizes for making it worse. Later, Kelly arrives at school on time. Then suddenly, Kelly stops riding his bicycle and starts eating the extruded polystyrene foam again. Upon his arrival at the school building, Kelly reads the vandal in his locker, which pertains to that he's a trash boy. But Kelly ignores it and gets his pencil inside to eat it. While chewing, Kelly notices his schoolmates laughing at him, only to find out that Nelson has already posted a video of him earlier. Because of that, Kelly runs off despite bumping into Tucker, who gets pissed off. Kelly decides to go home instead, and upon getting into their house, he helps his mother, Bernice, with the groceries. Kelly then suddenly takes out a piece of paper and chews it as he carries the grocery bags. Meanwhile, Red Elk begins a ritual with the skull he finds out on the ground. Inside the house, Kelly is laying on the couch as Dr. Fitzgerald asks how his appetite's going. But it's Bernice who answers, saying that he's still making his habit. Technically, Kelly has a pica disorder, but it can outgrow children eventually. However, in Kelly's case, he's struggling to control it, leading him to be malnourished. Afterward, Dr. Fitzgerald approaches Bernice to have a private talk with her. He then says Kelly no longer has a dietary issue, but a psychological one. Unfortunately, Dr. Fitzgerald can't help Kelly anymore because his obsession is out of control, and he needs another doctor to help him work through his compulsive behavior. However, Kelly overhears their conversation, so he assures Bernice that he'll be okay soon. Afterwards, Bernice escorts Dr. Fitzgerald outside and bids goodbye. Suddenly, Kelly teases Bernice, saying that Dr. Fitzgerald has a crush on her because he invites her for dinner, but Bernice disagrees. Meanwhile, Pfluger's performing in front of the people outside of a store, wherein he introduces himself as a healer. While convincing them, he assures everybody that he can take anything away that ails them using his hands. Because of that, Bernice sees him from behind while buying something inside. Bernice then discreetly watches Pfluger healing the older woman, only to discover that Pfluger successfully heals the older woman's back and legs. After Pfluger's performance, Bernice talks to Pfluger and favors healing Kelly. Fortunately, Pfluger agrees, and waits for Bernice to engine her car before he follows it. Then suddenly, Red Elk approaches Pfluger, saying that he can help him let go of the medicine, to which Pfluger gets confused about what he's saying. So Red Elk slaps Pfluger's find, only to find out that he cannot get harmed, because whoever tries will feel the pain. Red Elk then clarifies that Pfluger's power protects itself and the host from pain. However, he reminds Pfluger that medicine is purity, but he will eventually destroy himself if he abuses it. Yet Pfluger ignores his words, so Red Elk reveals that his power doesn't belong to Pfluger but to Red Elk's family, whom Pfluger digs their grave the other night. Unfortunately, Red Elk fails to convince Pfluger to give back their medicine power. After a while, Pfluger arrives at Bernice's house and charges her first before healing Kelly. Afterward, Pfluger gets inside and begins healing Kelly, to which he touches Kelly's right shoulder. Suddenly, Kelly feels something strange inside of his body, while Pfluger gets electrified after touching him. So Pfluger excuses himself to smoke and sniffs an illegal drug inside the bathroom. Afterward, Pfluger sluggishly walks due to the after-effect spiritual healing to Kelly. Pfluger then lies and says to Kelly that he has no illness. Looking intense, Pfluger talks to Kelly, saying that they have a lot in common: pain and hope for light. Afterward, Pfluger proceeds and touches Kelly's heart to activate his spiritual healing. However, Pfluger gets weakened, making him accidentally cough and blow the cigarette towards Kelly's chest. Suddenly, Kelly tries to catch his breath while Pfluger repeatedly coughs until he pees on his pants. Technically, Pfluger's now experiencing the consequences of the healing power, to which he eventually feels Kelly's pain. Pfluger then dies afterward. Later, Bernice calls an ambulance to get Pfluger to the hospital. Afterward, Sheriff Adler approaches Kelly to ask how he's feeling, to which Kelly says that he's just fine. But Sheriff Adler clarifies that he got a cigarette burn, only to find out that the mark is now gone on Kelly's chest. Sheriff Adler then apologizes on behalf of Pfluger's clone. The following day, Kelly fixes his bicycle using the locking pliers when suddenly he cuts his finger. Kelly then checks the wound and, to his surprise, he watches his finger getting healed alone. Because of that, Kelly feels happy and informs Bernice that something astonishingly happened to him after Pfluger's healing treatment. He then flips his middle finger to tell Bernice about his curing. However, Bernice thinks that Kelly's finally getting back to normal. Afterward, Kelly rides his bicycle on the way to school when suddenly the chain snaps, causing Kelly to stop. Upon parking the bike, Dominique and Sarah appear in front of him. Surprised, Kelly receives compliments from them about him looking better now. As Dominique and Sarah leave, Reed eventually appears from behind Kelly to punch his stomach. However, it only causes reversal pain to Reed after hitting him. Reed then runs off after hurting himself 3 times by beating Kelly. Later at night, Kelly happily informs Bernice about him getting a job at a local pizza store. While complaining, Gus Whitcomb, the football coach at Stanson High, suddenly knocks on their door to complain about Kelly attacking his son, Reed, before school. So Kelly appears and says that it was Reddy who tried beating him up, but hurting himself instead. Eventually, Bernice finds out that Reed bullies Kelly, causing her to defend Kelly and act rudely towards Gus for tolerating Reed. Once she closes the door, Bernice asks if what he's saying is true. So Kelly says that it's Pfluger's thing he will talk about. Afterward, Kelly orders Bernice to pinch him, to which he proves that he never feels hurt when somebody attempts to maltreat him. Shocked, Bernice tries squeezing his arms again. Later, Kelly shows some performances to Bernice by burning Kelly's hand using a lighter. As happy as she gets, Bernice reminds Kelly to keep their secret between them. Technically, Kelly gains a superpower called Healer Physiology, to which he can restore biotic organisms to his optimal health and cures damages in his body. Later at night, Kelly attends the bonfire at the beach to join his schoolmates when suddenly he sees Nelson lifting Dominique. So Kelly immediately runs in their direction and threatens Nelson not to touch her. Nelson then attempts to pick a fight with Kelly again, but luckily Gus saves the bell and stops them from fighting. Afterward, Gus blames Kelly for creating a fight, to which he tells Kelly that he'll figure out what's going on with him. And once he finds it out, Gus will attack Kelly. Because of that, Kelly decides to go home instead. Meanwhile, Tucker, Tony, and Nelson laugh as they discuss fornication while their friend, Brad, drives their car at high speed on the road. They then suddenly see Kelly bicycling on the road as they cheer him up. So Nelson orders Brad to make fun with Kelly, who plays the car's honk to pressure Kelly to ride his bicycle way faster. Unfortunately, Kelly gets hit by their vehicle, to which Brad kills himself after bumping his car into Kelly. Shocked to see Brad dead, Nelson tells Tony and Tucker to get out of the car and leave. On the other hand, Kelly gets up and his wound heals itself. Eventually, Nelson and his group discover that Reed's right about Kelly's superpower, causing them to run away from him. Meanwhile, Kelly explains to Dominique and Sarah what happened after seeing their car stop on the road. Later, Nelson and his group report to the police the incident, to which they blame Kelly for killing Brad. Meanwhile, Dominique keeps her promise to not tell anyone about Kelly's superpowers. Later at night, Nelson and his group begin their scheme by hooking up the chain on the block supporting their house trailer. Technically, they think that Kelly is left inside, so they demolish it afterward. Because of that, Bernice gets burned alive by the gas explosion as Kelly finds out that their house is burning after going home from the drugstore. After the tragic incident, Kelly attends Bernice's funeral and bids his last goodbye. Afterward, he goes to Pfluger's grave when suddenly he starts vomiting after eating the leaf. causing the ground to release demonic growls. Luckily, Sheriff Adler offers him a ride, and then reports that the supports from their trailer were pulled out from underneath, causing it to collapse. Eventually, Kelly finds out that Nelson and his group killed Bernice. Fuming mad, Kelly follows them to the river by jumping out of the car. Afterward, Kelly discreetly gets Tucker's shirt under the cooler and ties it on his neck to choke him. However, Sheriff Adler catches Reed, who runs away after seeing Kelly. So Kelly leaves a message to Nelson and Tony that they will be next. The following day, Kelly makes a scene in the chemistry class that Dominique, Tony, and Nelson attend. Tony attempts to pick a fight with him, but Nelson stops him. Afterward, Kelly triggers Tony, to which he boils himself with chemicals after pouring them on Kelly's face. Kelly then proceeds to Nelson, offering him to confess what he did, when suddenly Sheriff Adler enters the room, so Kelly immediately runs away. Later at night, Kelly finds out that Sarah and Nelson are planning on something inside the car, to which both of them go to Pfluger's grave to get his dried vines. The following day, Red Elk digs Pfluger's grave with the help of Sheriff Adler. Afterward, Sheriff Adler informs Gus of what he is dealing with, yet Gus is still eager to take down Kelly. On the other hand, Kelly sneaks into Gus's car to get something that owns by Nelson, which is the drill. Meanwhile, Sheriff Adler finds out that Nelson and Reed are the people who destroyed the trailer after seeing the chains at Gus's truck. Both of them refuse to admit it until Kelly appears with the drill in his hands. The movie ends with Kelly drilling his knees to make Nelson confess when suddenly Dominique intervenes and stops Kelly. So Kelly takes it out on his upper knee, allowing Nelson to attack him using the fire extinguisher containing dried vines from Pfluger's grave. Because of that, Kelly gets weakened while Gus takes the gun from Sheriff Adler to shoot Kelly in the head. However, the effect turns out to be killing himself and Nelson. Because of that, Dominique eventually despises Kelly, then orders him to give back the powers to Red Elk if he wants Dominique to like him again. So Kelly surrenders himself, only to watch Dominique die after the police officer shoots him during the ritual. Because of that, Kelly kills himself by eating Pfluger's heart, unconsciously knowing that the healing power switches to Dominique. Subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell icon, and lastly, leave a like as it will really help the channel out. Thanks for watching.